So welcome to this week's Optimum Health Clinic Facebook Live. And this week I wanted to talk about the body's innate wisdom. One of the things that's interesting that happens on the healing path from ME, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, is inevitably by learning to understand our symptoms, learning to make sense of what's happening, and just the reality of going through a severe chronic illness, is inevitably our focus ends up being on all of the things in our body that are not working. It's like we're focused towards, if we've got issues with our digestion, we're focused towards all of the reasons, the causes, the factors behind it. If we have issues with our immune system, then again, we're predicting all the ways that we want to avoid getting exposed to getting sick or whatever it may be. And it's so easy for our attention to be focused on what's wrong, what's not working. And for us to forget the numerous bodily processes that are happening on a moment by moment, day by day, week by week, month by month basis. Things like our cells regenerating. Deepak Chopra has written a whole bunch of books about something like in a span of 2 years, 98% or something of the cells in our body are new. It's basically a new body every 2 years. There's all of those processes that are happening, all of the homeostatic balances that are happening in our body. Our blood pressure goes up, our body works to bring it down. Our blood sugar goes one way, the body works to bring it back to balance. Most of the time in our life, we're not thinking about breathing, like breathing just happens. In fact, if you start to actively think about, am I breathing? Am I breathing enough? Did I remember to breathe? You can start to get almost a state of anxiety about the process of breathing. And yet it's a natural process that is happening constantly all of the time without any particular focus or attention from us. And so, and the evidence being that our conscious mind can do 7 plus or minus 2 things at any one time. So 5 to 9 things is what our conscious mind can pay attention to. And there's different research in terms of numbers, in terms of unconscious processes that are happening. But there's something like 2 million pieces of information or things that are happening in our unconscious at any one time. And so, on one hand, we're focused about the things in our body that are not working, and yet we forget that if there's 1,000 bodily processes, let's say, that are happening, in ME chronic fatigue, maybe there's 1 or 2 of those that are not quite working the way that they need to. And that's not to deny the impact of that. Of course, that's unpleasant, the symptoms, the experience, and that needs to be understood and be addressed. But it's important not to get into a mindset where we have this position that our body is failing or our body is not working or we're not built like other people, that our body is somehow the villain or it's a failure because of those experiences we're having. Because we're ignoring the endless things that are working well. The endless things like, we get a cut and it heals. We bump up our body and the bruise heals. We get too hot and our body works to cool us down. There's this endless list of processes that despite the fact that we're not at the optimum health at this point perhaps you want to be, that there's endless things in your body that are working incredibly well. And it's somehow important to remember that. And it's important because partly it's just how it is, like it's a more accurate assessment of the experience we're having. But also, if what we're constantly focused on is what's wrong in our body, what we're also doing is we're constantly sending a state of stress response or anxiety about the fact that things are not okay, like my body's not safe. And it builds more of a sense of not feeling okay, like not being able to relax and be in our body. So we go more into our mind and more into our nervous system. If we can come more from a place of the recognition that, yes, there are things to be understood and things to be resolved, and in no way am I drawing the importance away from those. But in a sense, our relationship to our body, your relationship to your symptoms, is also crucial. Because if we're in a state of constant disharmony with our body, what we're also doing is we're causing more stress, we're causing more tension. And if we're looking to cultivate more of a place of acceptance, more of a place of being in a healing state, more of a place of connection with our body. It's also approaching our body in gratitude, in appreciation for all of the things, all of these endless bodily processes that are happening all of the time in the background, whether we're awake, whether we're asleep, whether we're ignoring them, whether we're paying attention to them. And so the more that we can come from a place of gratitude and a place of connection and a place of appreciation, somehow what that's cultivating is more of a state of health in our body as well. And again, my point is not that we should just, ignore the things that are happening that need to have attention paid to them. But if what we're doing is we're constantly putting our attention on what's not working in our body, and we're constantly feeding a cycle around that, then again, the danger is we feed more maladaptive stress response, we feed more reaction to those symptoms, we feed more frustration. And so it's trying to cultivate a relationship with our body where we're building more of what it is that we do want. And this can be extremely difficult to do. It's difficult to do partly because we're habituated towards the place of focusing on what's wrong and the place of frustration. It's also difficult because when there's suffering, inevitably our focus goes towards wanting to end the suffering. And yet, if we have in place the pieces that we need, so particularly if we're paying attention to those symptoms and we're putting in place the practices, we're putting in place the support, and it's a matter of time for those things to have impact and things to change, the rest of the time what we want... Oh, I think my connection went. Okay, I think I'm back. I think my phone is trying to connect to the Wi-Fi upstairs. That's probably what's causing the problem. The rest of the time, what we want to be doing is we want to be cultivating being in a healing state. And anything that will support that, anything that will support positive relationship between our mind and our body, which will support a deeper sense of being in a healing state, which will support more of a sense of patience in response to things that are happening, that's only a good thing for the recovery path. And so, in a sense, my invitation is to think about what are all the processes in your body which are working, and try to see it in a broader picture of what's happening. And what may also be the case is if there's something, for example, like let's say there are digestive symptoms, there may be one piece in the digestive process which is not working optimally the way that it should. And that could be as simple as not having enough acidity in terms of breaking down food, or enough enzymes, or there may be parasites, whatever it may be. So there may be one piece in that jigsaw that your body is then working really hard to work with and compensate against. And from that point of view, it then becomes super easy to think about the whole digestive system's not working, rather than to see it as a piece, and a piece that can be addressed and can be worked with, but also a recognition of how much in the body is ultimately working. So I hope that's useful. I recognize it's a difficult challenge, and it's my point again, I think I've made this point enough times, and my point again is it's not to ignore what isn't working, because that needs to have to be addressed, but it's also to be focused on what is working and to have gratitude and appreciation for that. I hope that's been useful. I'm away next week, so I may or may not have a window to do the Facebook Live. And then as we move more into the autumn this year, we're going to start to have a series of recovery story interviews in these sessions to kind of evolve the format a bit as well. So I will maybe talk with you next week, and certainly in a couple of weeks' time. Bye-bye for now.